Stephen and Carol Baxter were a married couple leading a comfortable life in the close-knit island town of West Mersea in Essex, UK. With 2 children, Ellie and Harry, and Carol's daughter Rachel from a previous marriage, the family was settled and happy. Stephen was the global lead of a major real estate firm, while Carol had built a career in education. Though Carol did suffer from Hashimoto's disease, an autoimmune disorder that affects the thyroid and caused Carol to experience fatigue and muscle pains. The couple were by all accounts enjoying a fulfilling life. By 2013, the couple were in their 50s and preparing for a well-earned retirement. They lived in a spacious family home and were respected longtime members of the West Mersea Yacht Club and were active in the local community. Instead of completely winding down, Carol and Stephen decided to embark on a new business venture and created CATFISH, a company that sold luxury curved bath mats for corner showers. Carol made a career shift to focus all of her energy into building the business, while Stephen continued to work in real estate. They hired a local computer science graduate and freelance web designer, Luke DeWitt, to create the website for CATFISH. Around this time, Carol's health began to worsen. Desperately searching for a solution, she found Dr. Andrea Bowden, a Florida-based specialist in Hashimoto's disease. They weren't able to meet in person, so they communicated through emails and WhatsApp. Dr. Bowden recommended alternative medicine treatments and advised Carol to take a variety of unconventional remedies, including drinking boiling water with lemon and crushed up aspirin tablets. Dr. Bowden introduced Carol to some of her other Hashimoto's patients, so they could form a support group and encourage each other to stick to the unpleasant regimen. One of these patients was Cheryl, another British woman. Carol and Cheryl struck up a friendship and began messaging regularly about their health struggles and their lives in general. As they grew closer, they eventually arranged to meet up in person. Stephen drove Carol 3 hours, but Cheryl ended up not being able to make it at the last minute. Carol became increasingly involved in Dr. Bowden's support group. Its members were all intensely loyal to Dr. Bowden and would encourage each other to follow the doctor's strict lifestyle rules, which called for plenty of rest and avoiding overexertion and doing too many household chores, as well as drinking her disgusting tasting herbal remedies. Cheryl would text Carol, "No washing, no dishwashing, I had you down as a smart lady. I really did. Carol, get a grip please. Play by the rules and stop trying to do things. You are seriously ill." Ellie Baxter had her concerns about the influence that Dr. Bowden and the support group had on her mother, but Cheryl's sister Jenny reached out to Ellie and reassured her that Dr. Bowden knew what she was doing and that soon Carol would start feeling better. Ellie's growing suspicion that there was something amiss about Dr. Andrea Bowden would turn out to be not unfounded, but she had no idea the level of chaos and heartbreak that would soon befall the Baxter family. As Carol's health was fragile and her doctor had ordered her to exert herself as little as possible, Luke DeWitt, her part-time IT consultant, offered to help her around the house. Luke was known around the close-knit West Mersea community as a quiet but kind-hearted young man. He was part of the Mersea Carnival Association and volunteered at a soup kitchen and was always eager to help others. He lived with his parents just a short walk away from the Baxters, so it wasn't any inconvenience for him to pop around to help Carol with household chores and the running of CATFISH. Over the next few years, Carol's health continued to steadily decline. Her mental state was also deteriorating, and she was becoming more confused and forgetful. As the strain on the Baxter family worsened, Luke stepped up to help even more. He took Carol on walks, helped administer her medication, and would often stay with her all day at home. He even recommended another doctor, Alan Mandel, who prescribed even more medications and healthy but foul-tasting smoothies for Carol, which Luke dutifully made. In 2021, Luke's father passed away from cancer. The Baxters were very sympathetic and embraced him even more, treating him as a part of the family. He became like an older brother to Ellie and Harry, and was always happy to help them out by lending them money whenever they needed it. Ellie in particular struggled to cope as Carol was starting to exhibit symptoms of dementia. With her mother fading away before her eyes, Ellie leaned heavily on Luke and her friend Jenny, Cheryl's sister, for comfort and emotional support. In February 2022, Carol experienced an excruciating sharp pain in her stomach. She was rushed to hospital and x-rays revealed that there was a small thumbtack lodged inside her stomach. It was extremely alarming to the family that Carol had become so confused that she had somehow accidentally swallowed a tack. Doctors were baffled by Carol's condition, as her cognitive issues were not related to Hashimoto's. Meanwhile, she continued to obediently consume the herbal remedies and smoothies prescribed by Dr. Andrea Bowden and Dr. Alan Mandel. It was heartbreaking. The Baxters had worked hard their whole lives and dreamed of spending their retirement years traveling the world and being grandparents. Ellie had just had a baby boy and was expecting another. As Carol's health declined, so did their business, CATFISH. By April 2023, CATFISH had debts of £62,000. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, Luke, who the Baxters considered to be like an adopted son, revealed that he had cancer and would need a bone marrow transplant. The bad news brought him even closer with the Baxter family. On the evening of the 7th of April 2023, Good Friday, Luke DeWitt was over at the Baxters' home as he often was. Dr. Alan Mandel had sent instructions for both Stephen and Carol to make a healthy liver cleansing smoothie, which he warned might make them drowsy. As usual, Luke prepared the drinks and made sure they both drank them, especially Stephen, who was not as used to the bitter concoctions. As the Baxters settled into their armchairs in the conservatory, Luke quietly left, leaving them to doze off. He made the short walk home and spent the rest of the night watching TV. The next morning, Luke went to the gym. Then, as it was a sunny day, he and his mum went out for ice creams. It was Ellie Baxter's 22nd birthday, and they had organised a dinner to celebrate. Luke, his mum, Ellie, and Ellie's partner Marcus all met at the restaurant Frankie and Benny's that night. At one point, Ellie asked Luke for £40, which he happily gave her, bringing the total amount of money she owed Luke up to £7,000. Ellie found it strange that her parents hadn't called or texted her to wish her a happy birthday yet. So on the morning of Easter Sunday, she decided to pay them a visit. She rang the doorbell but no one answered. Concerned, she went around the back of the house to get a look inside through the glass walls of the conservatory. To her horror, she saw both of her parents sitting in their armchairs, lifeless. She dialed 999, frantically banged on the glass and tried to unlock the doors. A neighbour, hearing the commotion, rushed over with a hammer to smash the glass to get inside. Luke DeWitt also ran over to the scene and took over the 999 call from a now hysterical Ellie.
So just tell me exactly what happened from what you know, please, just so we can all go to best health.
Well, we just turned up to the house and we hadn't really heard from anyone for about a day and a half. So we came round and their daughter got here first and I think they got round to the back, saw through their conservatory that they were sitting in their armchairs not moving. And we smashed the window to get in. But yeah, they're both stiff cold.
Police arrived at the scene and began to question Ellie, Luke, and other witnesses nearby. Ellie told police she believed there must have been a carbon monoxide leak as there was no obvious physical signs that either Stephen or Carol had been harmed. Luke calmly gave his witness statement and detailed his movements on Good Friday evening. Doorbell camera footage confirmed that he had left the house just before 8 p.m, making him the last person to see the Baxters alive.
And me and Steve were just talking about work and just the business, because Carol can't work anymore.
Yeah.
Last year she's not been able to do anything.
Okay.
So we're just having a chat, but he didn't really feel up to it and just
Fair enough.
asked me to go. So
That's fair enough.
I was going to come back tomorrow and
Just check on them again.
use the gym. And I'm used to checking on. I always pop in.
Yeah.
Because they wanted this weekend, Easter weekend.
Just left them to it.
So with me, I was out with those two last night. Took them for dinner for Eddie's birthday. But because we were concerned, me, Ellie, and Marcus drove past here.
And I called Ross because Rachel's in Portugal.
Okay.
Just to make, we were worried. But because we saw the blinds are down and the light was on,
You
we
thought,
just thought
oh,
they're doing what they want. They've got
Yeah.
their weekend,
Yeah.
the lights are on, they're just ignoring us. All cool.
okay.
Eddie popped by first, saw the blinds were still down, immediately
I don't
panicked.
know how that would help.
I was meeting them anyway, but Marcus called me and just given
Marcus' mum's coming
that
down to
they're in the chairs, they're not moving, they're not replying. So I literally ran from home to
To here to come check.
here.
Okay.
And just as I got here, they just smashed the back window to get in.
To get in. Okay, fair enough. So you last saw them alive on Friday. Cool. And have you seen them today? Did you go in to see them yourself?
I have been in there, yeah.
You have, okay.
And I went upstairs and the paramedic asked me to get all Carol's medication that
Okay.
she's got a look. Because sometimes she'll
Yeah.
had various things over the years of the various operations she's had. And so I went upstairs and got anything that I thought looked like a tablet drawers downstairs and put it in a brown box for the paramedic.
Yeah, they like to know what people take, gives them an idea as to
Unfortunately,
what they suffer
you don't
from.
know what
She's actually taken.
But sometimes she forgets that she could take it 6 or 7 times. I know that's
Really?
that, but I mean, she doesn't know. Or
She doesn't know she's taken it loads of times.
no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's all we need to know for now.
Yeah.
We'll be in contact again, I'm sure, in the near future.
The house was searched for evidence, but immediately something felt off. The property was unusually clean and tidy. There were no cups or mugs near the bodies, and the kitchen was completely spotless. While going through the study, Ellie found a recently updated will. It named, quote, "Our dear friend Luke DeWitt" as the new director of CATFISH, and he was also to be given the keys to their home. The will also requested that £60,000 from the Baxter's estate be transferred to the business. Ellie felt the will was very strange. Her parents had never mentioned changing their wills, and the wording, especially referring to Luke as their dear friend, was odd. Luke was a close family friend. However, she had heard her parents on many occasions express irritation that he was always at their home, and they had called him, quote, "nerdy weird." However, a couple of days later, she received an email from a solicitor confirming the updated will was current and valid. A copy of the will was also found at the CATFISH office. Over the next couple of months, Ellie turned to her friends, Luke and Jenny, for support. Luke accompanied Ellie and her young family to her parents' funeral and stayed by her side throughout. Meanwhile, the police investigation pressed on. Carbon monoxide poisoning was ruled out, as was the possibility of a suicide pact. But when the toxicology results came back, things ramped up, as Carol and Stephen Baxter had died from a lethal dose of fentanyl, a drug neither of them had ever been prescribed. A murder investigation was launched, and both Ellie and Luke were treated as suspects. In July 2023, Ellie's home was searched, but police found nothing to link her to her parents' deaths, and she was released without charge. Luke's home, which he shared with his mother, was also searched, and what they found was damning. Police found a backpack full of fentanyl patches, both opened and unopened, along with a box of thumbtacks and pill casings. Also found were 80 electronic devices, including phones, laptops, hard drives, and USB sticks. On one of the phones was a very disturbing photo. It depicted Carol and Stephen sitting in the armchairs in the conservatory of their home, dead. Luke DeWitt, now aged 34, was promptly arrested at his office on the University of Essex's campus and charged with 2 counts of murder.
Luke, the reason we're here today, mate, is I'm going to have to arrest you, mate, alright? And that's on suspicion of murder. Alright, as part of a police investigation, you've been identified as being a suspect in relation to the deaths of Caroline and Stephen Baxter, 27th and 9th of April, 2023, alright? Okay. So I mean, you don't have to say anything, but may harm your defence. If you do not mention any questions, something you may later on in court, anything you do say may be evidence. So we'll be taking you up to Chelmsford custody, and then there'll be a process from there, mate, alright? Have you been arrested before?
No.
Never been arrested, no? The process will be explained throughout, or obviously we're limited information what we've got at the moment, but anything further will be explained throughout the investigation, alright? Because I've never met you before, and obviously because of the offence of the allegation, I'm going to put you in handcuffs, but they're going to be at the front stack, buddy, alright? Just leave everything in your pocket in a minute, mate.
Do you have anything upstairs, like phone, keyboard, anything like that?
No, it's in the pocket.
It's all on your stuff?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any medical conditions?
No.
We need to be aware of, so?
No.
Cool.
The quiet, helpful young man the Baxters had welcomed into their family had been hiding a dark secret, and the full extent of his horrific plan would soon be exposed. Investigators discovered that Luke had created a web of over 20 fake personas and used multiple phones and computers to communicate with Carol and manipulate her, and to eventually infiltrate the entire Baxter family. Dr. Alan Mandel, Dr. Andrea Bowden, Cheryl, and all the other members of the Hashimoto support group, Cheryl's daughter Jenny, who befriended Ellie Baxter, and the solicitor who verified the Baxters' updated will. All of these people were fabricated by Luke DeWitt. He would pose as these personas and communicate with the Baxters regularly through an expansive network of email addresses and WhatsApp accounts, and even went so far as to adopt a high-pitched voice to leave voice notes to Ellie as Jenny. Between 2021 and 2023, Luke posed as Dr. Alan Mandel to coerce Carol into drinking health remedies that he would personally prepare and secretly lace with a cocktail of drugs, including an over-the-counter antihistamine called promethazine, which caused Carol to develop symptoms of dementia and Parkinson's. It was the reason why doctors couldn't figure out why Carol's illness was progressing the way it was. As Carol's health got worse, Luke would offer more help, ingraining himself deeper in the Baxter household, wielding more control over Carol, making her sicker and more desperate, while also isolating her under the influence of her so-called support group. He created Jenny to befriend Ellie and ease her concerns about Dr. Andrea Bowden, and he was tracking each family member's movements through his phone. On the evening of Good Friday 2023, Luke prepared Dr. Mandel's latest remedy for Carol and Stephen. This time, he laced the drinks with fentanyl patches, which were originally prescribed for his father's cancer treatment. He presented the drinks to the Baxters, reminding them that Dr. Mandel had warned that it would taste bitter and make them drowsy. As the Baxters began to lose consciousness, Luke set up a phone in the conservatory and hit record. He linked the phone's camera feed up to a surveillance app on his main phone so he could watch the Baxters die. Luke then used Carol's iPad to transfer £6,000 from her bank account to Cash Splash's business account. He then tidied up the kitchen meticulously, pocketed some of Carol's jewelry, double-locked the Baxters' front door, and walked home. The next day, he had dinner with Ellie Baxter for her birthday, all the while knowing that earlier in the day, he'd watched a live video of her parents taking their final breaths. In the early hours of April 10th, the day after Carol and Stephen's bodies were discovered, Luke typed up a fake will on his phone, then planted copies inside the Baxter's home and at the Cash Splash office. Over the following months, he continued to play the role of Ellie's supportive friend until he was ultimately arrested for murder. There was no evidence he ever had cancer. In court, Luke denied he had anything to do with the Baxters' deaths. He showed up to his trial in a wheelchair to garner sympathy from the jury. He claimed that it was Stephen Baxter who had come up with the idea of creating fake people to catfish and manipulate Carol, but phone records quickly disproved this. In March 2024, Luke DeWitt was found guilty of murdering Stephen and Carol Baxter. He was sentenced to life with a minimum of 37 years in prison. Detective Rob Kirby, head of major crimes at Essex Police, summed it up. He is without doubt one of the most dangerous men I have ever experienced in my policing career. He fooled everyone. He befriended people, came across as a very amenable, helpful person. But in the background, he was a cool, calculated killer who spent years planning the demise of Carol and Stephen Baxter. I have absolutely no doubt that had he not been caught, he would have gone on to commit further murders. Police are now reportedly investigating whether Luke may have also used fentanyl to murder his father and grandfather in 2021.